Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Southwest Development Commission Establishment Bill 2023, SB 68, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Southwest Development Commission Establishment Bill 2023, SB 68, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, the fifth business of the day is presentation of bill standing in the name of Senator Olubiyi Fadeyi Oluwole of Federal University, Osogbo, Establishment Bill 2023, SB 69. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Federal University Osogbo Establishment Bill 2023, SB 69, first reading.
Distinguished senators, Federal University Osogbo Establishment Bill 2023, SB 69, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, the sixth business of the day is presentation of bill standing in the name of Senator Barau Jibrin on the Explosive Act, Repeal and Enactment Bill 2023, SB 70. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Explosives Act, Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2023, SB 70, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Explosives Act, Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2023, SB 70, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, the seventh business of the day is presentation of the bill standing in the name of Senator Eze Kenneth Emeka on Federal Polytechnic, Onueke, Ebonyi State, Establishment Bill 2023, SB 71. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Federal Polytechnic, Onueke, Ebonyi State Establishment Bill 2023, SB 71, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Federal Polytechnic, Onueke, Ebonyi State Establishment Bill 2023, SB 71, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, the eighth business of the day is presentation of bill standing in the name of Senator Azuko Ekpeyon on the Corporate Bodies Member Emolument Act, Repeal, Bill 2023, SB 72. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Corporate Bodies Members Emolument Act Repeal Bill 2023, SB 72, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Corporate Bodies Members Emolument Act Repeal Bill 2023, SB 72, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, the ninth business of the day is presentation of a bill standing in the name of Senator Ndume Mohammed Ali on the Elite Sheriff's Corp of Nigeria, Establishment Bill 2023, SB 73. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Elite Sheriff's Corps of Nigeria Establishment Bill 2023, SB 73, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Elite Sheriff's Corps of Nigerian Establishment Bill 2023, SB 73, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. Senate President, the 10th business of the day is presentation of bill standing in the name of The 10th business of the day is presentation of bill standing in my name on National Oil Spill Detection and Response Agency Amendment Bill 2023 SB 74. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Clerk of Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, National Oil Spill Detection and Response Agency Act Amendment Bill 2023, SB 74, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, National Oil Spill Detection and Response Agency Act Amendment Bill 2023, SB 74, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, the 11th business of the day is presentation of bill standing in the name of Senator Joel Onowapo Thomas on Nigerian Maritime University Okere Koko Establishment Bill 2023, SB 75. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senator, Nigeria Maritime University Okeren-Koko Establishment Bill 2023, SB 75, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Nigerian Maritime University Okeren-Koko Establishment Bill 2023, SB 75, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate. Maybe just before the Leader of the Senate says something, this last bill that we just took the first reading, is with Senator Ndume, in the 8th Senate, this was passed into an act unless it was not signed. I recall. Can you remember?
Well, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, there are so many bills like this that were either work in progress or are passed over to but were not signed. And the normal thing is to roll it over, and that is what we are doing in batches. So, distinguished colleagues, we will be expecting bills rolled over from the 9th Senate into the 10th Senate, and this is one of them. Even if it is in the 8th, bills can be rolled over, and that is it.
The clerk of the Senate, for the information of the Senate, please cross-check. This Maritime University bill was passed into an act of parliament in the 8th Senate, but find out whether it was signed. If it was not signed, then we can go ahead. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. Senate President, the first order of the day is a motion standing in the name of Senator Adeola Solomon Olamilekan on the urgent need to lift the restriction under placed on supply of fuel to border communities. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Adeola Solomon Olamilekan to move the motion.
Distinguished Senator Adeola Solomon Olamilekan.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name remains Adeola Solomon Olamilekan. I represent the good people of Ogun West Senatorial District, Southwest Nigeria. Mr. President, the motion goes thus. The urgent need to lift the restriction order placed on the supply of fuel on border community. The Senate notes the federal government on the 6th November 2019 through the Comptroller General of Customs directed that no petroleum product is permitted to be discharged in any filling station within a radius of 20 kilometers to the border of the Nigeria nationwide. The Senate also notes that this directive was to checkmate the smuggling of Nigerian petroleum products, mostly premium motor spirit, the PMS, to the neighboring countries where there was a thriving market to Nigerian petrol because of the subsidy that was still on the petrol then until May 29, 2023. Inaugural announcement by the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, His Excellency Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu, removing the subsidy. The Senate aware that this policy had brought untold hardship and major losses to business of the residents and indigents of the affected border community, which later made the Nigerian custom to relax the policy slightly, being given license to 2 or 3 petrol stations in each of the local government areas that borders these neighboring countries. But that remedy was just a drop of water in the ocean. Scarcity of the petrol considering the mass population of the people affected in these border towns and communities. The Senate also aware that the suspension made by the federal government since 2019 has negatively impacted on the socio-economic activities with attendant hardship in lives and livelihood of people living in the border towns and community across Yewa land in Ogun State, particularly in the Idiroko axis, as only less than five licensed independent petroleum marketers are allowed to dispense this commodity to over 500,000 residents of the area, with over 150 dispersed towns and villages. The Senate observed that since there is no longer subsidy on our petroleum products to as proclaimed by the President, there is no longer any justification for the restriction order because the price of petrol across the international border has also gone up in line with the new price regime across Nigeria. And the Senate concerned that the residents of our border areas are now suffering from the double jeopardy of insufficient supply of product to the area on one hand and the price hike on the other hand, in addition to the hitherto creeping of economic activities. Accordingly resolved to 1, all the Controller General of Customs and Excise to leave the subsisting restriction order placed on the supply of this petroleum product to the affected border community because the removal of subsidy by the Nigerian government has substantially put paid to the smuggling of the PMS product. Therefore, the product should be allowed to circulate freely without restriction. 2, also all the Controller General of Customs and Excise to intensify preventives and enforcement measures to combat the smuggling of all kinds. And 3, mandate the Committee on Customs and Excise when constituted to ensure compliance and report back in 4 weeks for further legislative action. And also to add, Mr. President, the National Security Advisors should also be called upon alongside with the Controller General of Customs to lift this restriction because we are reliably informed that the National Security Advisor Office is in charge of this restriction in conjunction with the Nigerian Customs and Excise duty. Mr. President, distinguished colleague, I so move.
Senator Kaka.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. My name is Kaka Shehu Lawan. I represent the good and resilient people of Borno Central Senatorial District. Mr. President, I rise to second the motion ably moved by distinguished Senator Solomon Adiola Olamilekon, and with the leave of Mr. President, I would like to contribute. Mr. President, this motion is timely and is apt. Border communities in this country are suffering as a result of untold hardship meted as a result of non-supply of petroleum products. Of note, my Lord, Mr. President, I said my Lord, sorry, I thought I was in court. Mr. President, my constituency is bordered by 2 countries of Chad and Cameroon. Gamborungala is a town bordering Cameroon. Banki is a town bordering Chad. These 2 settlements are known for their business activity. Agrarians, they are all agrarian and they use petroleum product. But once I urge my colleagues to contribute and allow this motion to take effect, I so second. Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues.
Senator Abu.
Thank you, Mr. President, for the opportunity to contribute on this very important motion. My name is Senator Ishaku Abo. I represent very good, resilient people of Adamawa Northern Central District. Mr. President, as you are aware, the entire 5 local governments in my senatorial district are actually border local government. In this chamber, my senatorial district is about the only senatorial district whose entire strength and length is a border community. From Madagali, Michika, Mubi North, Mubi South, and Maiha, all border communities. The restriction on the sale of petroleum products placed upon by the office of the NSA sometime 3 years ago and enforced by Nigerian customs has brought untold hardship on the people of Adamawa Central District and also on all border communities in Nigeria. Also, Mr. President, apart from the sale of petroleum products, the custom also placed restriction on the sale of any kind of fertilizer, therefore threatening food insecurity on these zones. Let me tell you an example. In Gombe State, an NPK fertilizer goes for 14,000 naira. When you go to Mubi, Adamawa State, what sells for 14,000 naira in Gombe town goes for 24,000 naira in Mubi, an addition of 10,000 naira on it because of the activities of custom people. Mr. President, apart from actually calling on the custom to lift ban on the sale of this product, I am urging when the time comes for additional prayers, either to investigate these activities or the current ad hoc committee who are actually investigating the activities of the custom on this, in these offices, in these areas, they shall add this additional responsibility to them. I support wholly the motion as moved, read on this floor of the Senate by Senator Yai. Thank you.
Distinguished colleagues, what Senator Arbo said was almost an expansion of the motion because we are dealing with fuel issue here. But he also mentioned that it affects other issues like fertilizer supplies. And I recall that in these hollow chambers, we have set up a committee to look into the incessant killings occurring in some of the border communities, particularly with suspects carrying bags of rice, which we believe that should not carry death sentence. And so I think that committee headed by Senator Fadahunsi. So some of the information you are gathering here are some of the things that you may, by the side, also report back to the Senate when you come in. I don't think there is any much opposition here, so let me hear from the whip, Senate whip, and then we just go straight into the prayers because we have serious business of the day.
Well, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, I'm Mohamed Ali Ndume, representing Borno South. Mr. President, I stand here to support and emphasize on this very important motion. At the time we are passing through now, where Nigerians are actually suffering, everything should be done in order to remove the obstacles that is being created deliberately for the life of the people. What he said actually is the biggest market, that is the Ogun, Edo-Iroko, but we have border towns around our country. And what is happening there by the custom is something that this National Assembly have to do something very seriously. Especially this oil issue, the supply of PMS and the like. Banki is a town that is about 40 kilometers or 50 to Bama. That is the nearest border town. If somebody has a motorcycle, he cannot have the luxury of buying petroleum product in Banki, and he has to come to Bama. By the time you buy petrol, going there at about 800 per liter, to come to Bama and refuel, by the time you go back, that fuel has been consumed. Life cannot continue like that, Mr. President. Our people are suffering, they are frustrated, and we are the representative of the people, and the custom is established by the Act of National Assembly. We have oversight responsibility. That means we will tell them, we have the constitutional right to tell them how to do their job. This time around, Mr. President, the National Assembly should direct, not urge, direct them to open the borders and let them do their job. Anybody that is taking petroleum product across the border, they should arrest that person. But not to say that Idioroko people will not have their filling stations functioning. You can imagine somebody has invested his life in the building of that filling station, and overnight somebody comes to say, no, you close it down because they are smuggling petrol. We cannot allow that in this chamber because we have the power to do that.
So, distinguished colleagues, any contribution should not be more than 2 minutes in any situation, because we will not be able to finish other businesses of the day. So let me just hear from, yes, a lot of people with border communities, just 2 people, 2 more contributions and we are done. Distinguished Senator Abiru.
No, thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you very much. My name remains. No, please. So, hello. No, I'm not speaking. Hello. No. No. Hello. Mr. President, you have to protect me. You have to protect me.
Distinguished Senator Ademiloko, or Lamileko, don't bring your quarrel outside into the chambers. Abiru, you are protected by the chair.
Mr. President, please protect me from. Hello, Mr. President, sir.
He's speaking as a distinguished senator, not as a city boy.
As a senator of the Federal Republic, and my name remains Senator Mukahil Adetokunbo Abiru. Sir, Mr. President, I'm in support. Hello, Mr. President, I'm in support of the challenges of the challenges that this issue has created within the border arena. I completely support what my colleagues had said, but I just need to give some sort of guidance. It is indeed we have actually withdrawn. I mean, the subsidy removal has been withdrawn. That is true, and so we have the right pricing going on in the market. But what we have to be mindful of is that we are surrounded by countries that perhaps don't have the capacity to do direct importation on their own. So I can read out from all the countries surrounding us, the price of petrol in those places today is still on the high side. So it will still continue to be some sort of attraction to some of the smugglers. No, I'm saying that. Hold on. Let me finish. So it is, to the extent. Please listen to me. The average price of that product within the countries that are surrounding us is about 1,000 naira. Yes, but so what we need to do, please, can I have what I am saying is that as I agree, if the system that we have just put in place, it will require a bit of time to mature, to really be accept. So what I'm saying, my point is this: I'm not saying that we shouldn't open, but I think it should be guided. Rather than throw everything open, let us gradually, we graduate it, such that, we still, what I don't want us to end up doing is not an opportunity. Please, can you listen? I have the floor now. I have the floor. See, President, you have to protect me from my colleagues. You have to protect me. What? That is not the point.
That's why you're neighbors, you don't know what
No, it's not a matter of not knowing what is going on. These guys don't understand. Mr. President, you have to protect. Whip, can you control them now?
you're standing. Protect him. Say you are standing.
So,
what number? 55? Order 55 of the order 55-9. Please open. Open order 55-9. Order 55 sub 9. Senator Solomon Adela Adami Leko. Stand up and read for the benefit of the public watching you from all over the world. Read it out. Read order 50. Read order 55-9 out, please.
Point of order here, I have order 55 A, B, C, D, E.
Read order 55-9.
Excellency, Excellency, I will read. But I read because...
Read out order 55-9, sub 9. Just read it out so that we can continue, please.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleague, order 59, page 41.
Order 55, sub 9.
It's 41. He said when a senator is...
Use your mic.
Thank you, Mr. President. When a senator is speaking, no senator may converse aloud or make any noise or disturbances to interrupt him. Mr. President, Mr. President, what that senator is saying...
Read it one more time. There's a reason why I said so. Are we arguing? Okay, just read it one more time because I want our brothers and our colleagues to hear. Please, one more time.
I can't see it very well. I need glasses. That's why I'm forced to read. When a senator is speaking, no senator may converse aloud or make to interrupt him.
Distinguished Senator Solomon Adela Adamileko, your point of order 55-9 is sustained. No senator may converse aloud, make noise, or disturb the other senator when he's speaking. So let us just respect ourselves, unless it's different from what.
Okay. No. Can I wrap up?
Order 40. My point of order is order 52-1. The third part of it. 52-4. A senator must confine his observation to the subject matter under discussion and may not introduce matters irrelevant thereto. We are talking about what is happening at the border, and somebody is talking about the implications of those laws made, especially like the withdrawal of fuel subsidy. That is what led to the intervention.
No, you didn't get it. Distinguished Senator, your point of order is noted. Distinguished Senator Abiru, is noted, please. You want to make contribution. Somebody is already standing. Distinguished Senator Abiru, you are protected. Conclude your speech, and then another person can take over. Yes, let him conclude.
So thank you very much. Thank you. No. Hello, Mr. President.
Okay, in line with our rules, a point of order must always be heard. Senator Abu, let the point of order be relevant. Very relevant. Okay, Senator Abu, take your seat.
Today, Mr. President. I am coming.
Yeah, point of order, Senator Sani. Point of order, Senator Sani. No, but based on what he said rank adede, and then he said point of order. Maybe he wants him to explain the meaning of rank adede. So, Senator Sani, go on. Senator Sani, you have the floor. Senator Abu, give him chance. Yeah, which. Senator Sani. Senator Abu, don't worry, you will have your opportunity. But Senator Sani. Use your mic.
Nike language is the same thing, eh?
Senator Abu, please sit down. Senator Sani, use your mic.
I'm going to read order 52.4. A senator must confine his observations to the subjects under discussion and may not introduce matter irrelevant. As far as I'm concerned here, rank adede is irrelevant to what we are discussing. And it's not a language that should be entertained in the chamber of the Senate.
Your point of order is upheld. Senator Abu.
Mr. President, I am coming under order 57. I will not dilate because section order 4 has explicitly given us the language that we should discuss in the Senate. And rank adede means may you live long. You don't want to live long? Mr. President, Mr. President, rank adede means may you live long. Mr. President, choose. Do you want to live long or not? Mr. President.
Senator Abu, your point of order. Please read it out. Please use your mic.
No dilatory motion shall be brought by a senator or entertained by the President of the Senate. Mr. President, with all intents and purposes, the contribution of Senator Abiru is dilatory in nature and should not be entertained. Thank you.
Noted. Senator Abiru, conclude.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. So, for the record, I don't live in the city. I live in the community as well in Ikorodu, which is a part of Lagos State. Now, my position is this: I empathize with all the issues around the border matter as canvassed by my colleagues. I indeed, empathize and I understand. But again, we should not overlook what the distortion in our market, in the market that we're trying to correct. So all I'm saying is that we should gradually, open those places, not everything at a go. We should moderate it gradually so that at least those who live within those communities can have access to the product. But we should do it in such a way that we don't still allow our products to get across the border, because the border is still very, very attractive, and most of the surrounding countries don't have the capacity to import fuel directly on their own. I so submit, Mr. President. Thank you very much.
Yes, my leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, in lending my voice to the discussion of the motion.
You want to start with the introduction of who is speaking?
Wale Edun, I represent Osun Central District of Osun State. Sir, in the premise of the motion, the reason for the stoppage of the fuel to those areas was because of the subsidy. Now, because of the removal of subsidy, the business of importing and selling of product is no more in the government purview. It has become a general business of people that are in that field. Whether they are buying it at a higher price somewhere or they are buying at a lower price somewhere is not affecting Nigerian economy in any form. In fact, it's a good business for us in Nigeria. So I'm supporting this bill that the free flow of petroleum products to and fro those border areas should be done immediately. And people in that area should not suffer again, because the reason for the stoppage before has been completely removed. I also submit, sir.
Distinguished colleagues, please, is there anybody who is opposed to this motion? If you are opposed to this motion, please raise your hand so that Nigerians will know. Senator Sadiq, you are opposed to the motion. Sadiku, right? You are opposed to the motion. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I want to come first to appreciate the mover of the motion for the meticulous work. The motion, from my own point of view, is having two considerations. The first one borders on economy, but the second tranche of it is on security. They are all border community, yes, and they are under serious suffering because of the prohibition of movement of petroleum product. When Senator Abu was talking, he made mention of fertilizer as part of the restriction order or what they are suffering. And these two items, the PMS, the fertilizer, they are precursor material for the manufacture of IED. And if we are going to take decision on this issue, the office of the NSA must be properly consulted. So that while we are lifting the suspension on those economic issues, we should consider the security aspect of it. So this is my contribution, my president and distinguished.
Well done. I think somebody mentioned also the issue of fertilizers. And I know that fertilizers are used for all these explosives. So if there is a bit of restriction on free movement of fertilizers across our borders, it's also to stop free movement of explosives, because that is one of the components of it. So we go straight into the prayers, and then in the course of the prayers, you can have amendments and additional prayers that will moderate the view that have been expressed in a diverse form. Prayer 1, urge, let me read the prayer, then you amend. Prayer 1, urge the Comptroller General of Customs and Excise to lift the subsisting restriction order placed on supply of petroleum products to the affected border communities, because the removal of subsidy by the Nigerian government has substantially put paid to the smuggling of the PMS products. Therefore, the products should be allowed to circulate freely without restriction. Distinguished Senator Tambuwal, you want to amend this prayer?
Mr. President, I am Amin Waziri Tambuwal, representing Sokoto South. I wish to amend or propose an amendment to prayer 1 to read thus: urge the Comptroller General of Customs and Excise and National Security Advisor to review
and lift the subsisting restriction order placed on supply of petroleum products to the affected border communities, because the removal of subsidy by the Nigerian government has substantially put paid to the smuggling of the PMS products. Therefore, the product should be allowed to circulate freely without restrictions. I so move.
Any seconder? Distinguished Senator Mangunu.
Yes, I'm ending it.
No, any seconder? Oh, no, okay. Let somebody second first now. This is Senator Odende.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Emmanuel Memga Odende, Senator representing Benue Northeast. I stand to second the amendment as moved by His Excellency Tambua. I so second.
Amendment.
Distinguished colleagues, the further amendment to the amendment. Let's hear. Okay, go on.
Distinguished senators, my name is Mohamed Tahir Moguno. I represent Borno North Senatorial District. My amendment is to the effect that we should still include the lifting of the restriction on fertilizer. Yes, because I'm coming from the Northeast, and we are the ones that are affected by this restriction on fertilizer. Mr. President, we cannot be preaching the gospel of people going to the farm, put security, and at the same time deprive a section of the country of the use of fertilizer. It's like we are appropriating and reprobating at the same time. So I think the restriction on fertilizer should also be lifted, should be included in that prayer, because we are severely affected by that restriction. So much. Particularly those of us.
Yes, Distinguished Senator Mangunu, and former Chief Whip of the House of Representatives, and now a distinguished senator, the debate on this motion has been concluded. If you want to add additional amendment to the prayer on fertilizer, you can add, and your colleagues will have the say. So I have taken it that prayer 1 has been read and amended to include the Office of the National Security Advisor, and it's all on the movement of PMS across the borders, and for it to be allowed to circulate freely in view of the removal of the fuel subsidy, which is no longer a threat to smuggling. It has been seconded. Those who are in support of the prayer 1 as amended say aye. Those who are against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 2 also urged the Comptroller General of Customs and Excise to intensify preventive and enforcement measures to combat smuggling of all kinds. Those who are in support of prayer 2 say aye. Those who are against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 3, mandate the Committee on Customs and Excise, when constituted, to ensure compliance and report back in 4 weeks for further legislative action. Amendment. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to take a lead from the amendment in prayer 1 as given by Senator Aminu Waziri Tambua, that our Committee on National Security and Intelligence should also be part of that prayer 3. That is, Committee on Custom and National Security and Intelligence should monitor and report back in 4 weeks when constituted.
Yes. Any seconder? Distinguished Senator Idiot.
The Senate President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Idiot Oluronti Adebule. I rise to support the motion, the amendment, leave of amendment made by Senator Adiola Olamileko.
Distinguished colleagues, the prayer 3 has been amended to include our Committee on National Security and Intelligence, and that together with Customs, our Committee on Customs and Excise, to work together to report back in 4 weeks. Those who are in support of the amended prayer 3 say aye, and those who are against say nay. The ayes have it. Let me thank distinguished Senator Solomon Adiola Olami Leko of Ogun West for Senator Sadiq. Additional prayer?
Thank you, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues. I am Sadiq Suleiman Umar. I represent the good and decent people of Kwara North and All. Mr. President, my additional prayer is that mandate the border community development agencies to provide palliatives to border communities because they are the most hit as far as insecurity and economic difficulty is concerned.
Any seconder? Any seconder? No seconder. Senator Goje, additional prayer.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Mohammed Danjuma Goje, representing Gombe Central. My additional prayer will be like this. Urge the Controller General of Customs and the NSA to relax the restriction on fertilizer around the border communities so as to ensure food security for those areas.
Any seconder? No seconder. So, distinguished colleagues, I think, Senator Goje, the issue of fertilizer should be taken separately from PMS because of the larger implication of the production of explosives and IEDs. Because the reason why we entertain this PMS issue, we were talking about vehicles. Somebody gave an example of how somebody will move from Bama and drive down to the town to go and buy petrol product, and by the time he gets back, because of distance, the PMS had finished. And so it's not the same thing pouring fertilizer into the car and driving to and fro. So we should restrict ourselves to the discussions. We can expand it as we want, but I think the issue of fertilizer should be taken on its own, because it's a very important issue. Both the distribution, the purchase, and the method and everything should be taken on its own. And it has a lot of security implications. So I want to once again thank Senator Solomon Adiola for this motion and urge that we move on to the other business of the day, and thank you for your contributions. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished senators, the second order of the day is a motion requesting the Senate to consider the request of Mr. President CNC for the confirmation of the nominations of the following persons for appointment as ministers of the government of the Federation in accordance with Section 147, subsection 2 of the 1999 Constitution as amended. 1. His Excellency David Umahi, Ebonyi State. 2. Mr. Adebayo Wale Edun, Ogun State. 3. His Excellency Nasir
Ahmad El Rufai, CON, Kaduna State. 4, Architect Ahmed Musa Dangiwa, Katsina State. 5, Chief Uche Geoffrey Naji, Enugu State. 6, Stella Erubogene Okotete, Delta State. 7, Mr. Dele Alake, Ekiti State. 8, Mr. Adekola Adebayo Adelabu, Oyo State. 9, Mr. Mohammed Idris, Niger State. 10, Professor Ali Pate, Bauchi State. 11, Dr. Doris Anite Uzoka, Imo State. 12, Mr. Latif Fagbemi, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Kwara State. 13, Honorable Ekperikpe Ekpo, Akwa Ibom. 14, Barrister Hanatu Musawa, Katsina State. Mr. President, distinguished senators, please recall that so far the Senate has concluded the screening of 14 nominees for ministerial appointments. The Senate will now resume the screening of the remaining nominees. Mr. President, distinguished senators, in order to carry out this exercise in conformity with our Standing Order 12 on floor privileges, I will move a motion that the Senate do admit the Special Advisor to the President on National Assembly Matters, the nominees, non-serving senators, and other government officials, accompany them into the Senate chamber. I so move, Mr. President.
The Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, Mr. President, I rise to second the motion moved by Leader of the Senate. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded that we do admit the Special Advisor to Mr. President and any nominee, non-serving senators, and other strangers, such as government officials, into the chambers. Those who are in support of this motion say aye. Those who are against say nay. The ayes have it. The Senate Leader. The Sergeant at Arms, you may lead in the Special Advisor to be the President and any of his nominees to come. The Senate Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleagues. I rise to move that the Senate resolve to a committee of the whole to continue with the screening exercise. I so move, Mr. President.
The Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to second the motion that the Senate dissolve to committee of the whole to continue the screening. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved by the Senate Leader and seconded by the Minority Leader that this Senate do resolve the committee of the whole to continue the screening of ministerial nominees. Those who are in support of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes. Distinguished colleagues, Order 52 of our Senate standing orders as amended. A senator shall not read his speech, save if he is moving a motion or presenting a bill. So where a senator appears for screening, he shall not read his achievements in office. Where a senator is appearing for screening, he shall not read his achievements in office. And where a senator is a principal officer of the Senate, he shall appear, take his bow, and thereafter resume his seat until such a time that he is sworn in as a minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The floor is yours. Introduce yourself.
Your Excellency, Your Excellency, Mr. Senate President, Your Excellency, Deputy Senate President, my distinguished colleagues, let me first, with deep gratitude to God for the journey of my life, thank Mr. President for nominating me as one of the nominees for the office of the Minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Let me also thank the Senate President, the Deputy Senate President, the leadership of the Senate, and the entire distinguished senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for a very committed Senate, a Senate that is given and committed to the welfare of the country, the welfare of the people, the unity of the country. Mr. Senate President, let me thank you very highly for a very united Senate under you. In this Senate, the number of months I've spent, you have not allowed anything like partisan politics to take place. And that shows that you're divine, and I'm happy that God gave me the opportunity to be part of making of this peaceful leadership of the Senate. It's a privilege, and I want to thank you. Unless Mr. President rules otherwise, to introduce myself, I'm Engineer Wednesday David Umahi, CON, Fellow of the Society of Nigeria of Engineers, Fellow of Technologists and Engineering. I don't know whether the rules permit me to say where I'm from, Mr. President. Okay, I'm from Umunaguburu, in Ohosra local government area of Ebonyi State. I'm a senator representing Ebonyi South Senatorial Zone, and by the privilege of our senators, the deputy leader of this Senate. I was party chairman from 2007 to 2008, caretaker chairman, and elected party chairman from 2008 to 2011, deputy governor from 2011 to 2015, governor, APC, governor governor from 2015, 2019, 2023. I attended Umunaga Primary School 1997 to 1977 and Ishago High School from 1978, and I left in 1979 to Government College Afibo, where I finished in 1982. Then I went to the first technological university in Nigeria. That was Anambra State University of Science and Technology from 1982 to 1987. I'm a civil engineer by profession and by training, and a structural engineer. I did my NYSC with Saipan SPA in Benin City, and I was heading the category protection unit in the 2.8 billion excavers to Ebin gas pipeline. I'm a Christian. I have a wife, Chief Mrs. Richard Agon Umahi. God blessed me with 7 children, 3 men and 4 female. I love tennis and swimming. Mr. President, I had wanted, if you give me the opportunity, to read my profile.
Let me thank our nominee, distinguished Senator David Umahi, for filling in the gap on his childhood, from primary school to university and all that. The areas you want to take from are already before the public. If you Google Umahi, you know that he was once a party chairman. He was once a deputy governor, and he was a very outstanding governor, a performing governor for 8 years. And on entry into the Senate, he was the chairman of the stability group that produced the leadership in the Senate. And of course, the Senate in turn also bestowed on him the position of deputy leader of the Senate, a position that is still holding until the day he will be sworn in by Mr. President. So let me join you and my colleagues to thank Mr. President for finding one of us worthy to be nominated to stand before us. You will now take a bow. Next nominee. Uh, distinguished colleagues, we have before us another nominee of Mr. President in the person of Wale Edun. You have the floor. A brief summary of yourself and your resume. Thank you.
Good afternoon. The President of the Senate, Your Excellency, leaders of the Senate, distinguished senators, especially my own senators from Ogun State, ladies and gentlemen, may I say fellow Nigerians. I am Adebayo Wale Edun.
Is there? Is it there? Is there now? Oh, okay. Okay, I think they are. Your CV is here. Maybe they are expecting to see Wale Edun, not Olawale. Oh, Adebayo. Please check if you have Adebayo. Wale Edun, that, you know that's his CV. You have it? Yes, yes, yes. Okay, clerk, for those who do not have, please provide while he's speaking. But you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is my great privilege to appear before you this afternoon to humbly seek your confirmation to enable me answer the call of our President, His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and offer my service to our beloved nation. I am from Ake, Abekuta, Ogun State. My mother was from the Majekodumi family of Ake. And on my father's side, I traced my lineage from the Honorable Adegboyega Edun, who was secretary to the Egba United Government under colonial rule. And he was a significant contributor to the development and the history of Abekuta. I had my early education at St. Paul's School, Ebute Meta in Lagos. And after that, I attended schools in London, UK, where my parents were then living, working, and studying. I obtained my bachelor's degree in economics from the University of London, Queen Mary College, and a master's degree in development economics from the University of Sussex, England, which included research at the well-regarded Institute of Development Studies. My career path has given me a strong background in investment banking, capital markets, economic policy formulation, and international development finance. After my youth service year, I began my professional life at Chase Merchant Bank in Lagos, which included training and exposure at Wall Street's Lehman Brothers and Chase Manhattan Bank's headquarters, both in New York. Thereafter, I took the opportunity to join the World Bank Group in Washington, D.C. through the highly competitive Young Professionals Program. I was an investment officer at IFC, which is the private sector arm of the World Bank, and then I became an economist at the World Bank. And in that role, I worked on macroeconomic policies and sector policies on Indonesia and India. Meanwhile, back home, entrepreneurial opportunities started unfolding, and I came back to Nigeria to take part in that process as a hands-on investor in a series of financial firms. And importantly, it was the government's liberalization of that sector that made it possible. I feel highly privileged, and strong institutions, including a leading independent investment bank, a ratings firm that is now a subsidiary of a global ratings agency, and a stock exchange quoted bank, among other successful companies. Likewise, in answering a call to service in Lagos State, I am proud to have been a part of the stunning success achieved under the inspirational leadership of the then Governor Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in whose cabinet I served as Commissioner for Finance. Recall that Governor Tinubu took over in a most challenging time. He faced those challenges squarely and overcame them and was successful. And I played my own part in the design, the implementation of innovative, homegrown, technology-driven solutions that increased the resources available to government, grew the revenue in large quantities, and thereby gave government the wherewithal to spend on infrastructure, social services, and of course, job creation. And there are parallels today. We all know that these are challenging economic times, and they also need to be confronted, to be wrestled with, and to be defeated in an effort to build a competitive economy. Aside from economics, may I say that I have engaged in youth empowerment. I am involved in the International Award for Young People Nigeria, which runs the Duke of Edinburgh's award. And having been a national amateur boxing champion during my student days, I hope you are not too surprised at that. I've taken great interest in working with the state boxing associations in Ogun State and Lagos State to channel the energies of young people in the right direction. Your Excellency, distinguished senators, let me conclude by saying, in my view, and I'm sure in the view of so many, Nigeria is too well blessed with resources, both human and natural, not to be successful. At the outset of this new administration, I am hugely optimistic that that success will come. On a personal note, success for me would be to retain a record of competence and integrity during my service. I am Adebayo Wale Edun, and I humbly seek your confirmation of my nomination so that I can join you in service of our great nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Wale Edun. Let me start from the left. Senator Walada, are you there? I'll go there in case there is something Wadada wants to say, and the senators from his state will correct.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I remain Senator Wadada Aliyu from Nasarawa State, Nasarawa West Senatorial District. Distinguished colleagues. Mr. Nominee, your resume speaks for you. And of course, it is an open secret that previous governments and the present government particularly is committed to managing our foreign exchange. And simple economics that we were taught in secondary school says that the price of any commodity is determined by market forces, demand and supply. Now, what would you do differently? Here, demand and supply. For us to supply, we must have what to supply. And the real sector in Nigeria is in comatose. What would you do differently to either see to the resuscitation of the real sector so that the polity will be productive and we will have what to supply so that we earn foreign exchange and beef up our foreign reserve? Otherwise, if that will not be done within the quickest possible time, what other means would you, if you emerge or eventually become the Minister of Finance, for the market forces to be balanced so as to manage effectively the foreign, our foreign exchange? Again, what will you do differently to ensure effective link between fiscal and monetary policies for effective outcome? Because really and truly, the fiscal and monetary policies so far, where we're coming from, they haven't really been really interconnected for effectiveness of the economy. And then again, what would you do differently to ensure the shock in our balance sheet of our, in the balance sheet of our debt portfolio? Thank you very much, Mr. Nominee. And before I sit down, as an elder polo player, to me, I say eyes on the ball.
Distinguished Senator Ademiloko.
Thank you, Mr. President, sitting as the chair. Very distinguished colleague. I quite agree with my colleague who fired the first salvo to ask questions. And because of the pedigree of the man standing before us this afternoon, who has been involved in so many achievements that Lagos as a state has recorded thus far, I strongly believe coming to the center stage is another great opportunity to showcase what is capable of doing in trying in assisting the current economic woes of our great country, Nigeria. Mr. President, before us is Mr. Adebayo Wale Edun, who, according to his submission, which everybody have listened to, is from Ogun State. Ake precisely, the Ogun Central. And a senator representing Ogun State. And on behalf of the three of us, we are presenting to you a man who is not only committed, but who is dedicated to his job, and who have proven this over the years. Currently, is working with the present government as special advisor on monetary policies. And within the shortest time of assumption of this administration, the major economic reform that have been proposed thus far, which we believe in the long term will yield the desired fruit, which we all as a Nigeria are expecting. I strongly believe that this man will do all within his capacity to assist this present government to turn around the fortune of this country from the economic angle. And we in Ogun State strongly believe that this is one of our best. And we are presenting to this Senate that we're in total support of his nomination and further confirmation by this Senate. And we seek the understanding of our colleagues to please join to support Mr. Adebayo Wale Edun as a minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I so submit, distinguished colleague. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Mohammed Enju Mogoje, representing Gombe Central, Gombe State. Mr. Nominee, I stand here to support you. I stand to support all the submission given by my colleague, Senator Solomon Olalimeko. Mr. Nominee, I know you way back in the year around 2000 when you were the Commissioner of Finance, Lagos. And you people from Lagos, led by you, came up with the idea of bringing in Enron company to stabilize the power system in Lagos. And I remember you are one of the key people that I was Minister of State for Power, who had series of meetings with you, and you defended fiercely the introduction of Enron to stabilize the power in Lagos State. Mr. Nominee, if by chance Mr. President appoints you either as a Minister of Finance or Minister of Power, what would you do? Will you go back to the Enron style and bring back something bigger than Enron to stabilize the Nigerian power system? Or what we do differently to ensure that we have stable electricity in this country, without which we'll never have stable and vibrant economy in the country? I so submit. Thank you, but I support you 100%. He's a good person. He's well-grounded, very good. My series of meetings with him were so impressive that when I saw his name, I was very, very much impressed. I know that he will do wonders to this administration. Thank you.
The OGD.
Thank you, our Senate President, very distinguished senators. I am Otumba Engineer Benga Daniel, representing Ogun East Senatorial District. Let me start by saying that in Mr. Wale Edun, for us it's a good day because in him we have somebody in whom we are very, very pleased. I don't want to time because my colleague, Senator Adeola, has said so much. All I just want to add is that Mr. Wale Edun have been a professional of no misstanding in the last 35 or 40 years since I've known him. Many people might not be aware that it was by the whiskers that he missed being in the immediate past cabinet. But having said this, I'd like to ask Mr. Edun a simple question. It's common knowledge that Nigeria's debt today is in the region of about 40 trillion naira. When you add the ways and means to that, probably another 20 trillion naira is there. I'd like to know what your thoughts are and how you think we can get out of this debt quagmire. Having said that, Mr. President, sir, I have no doubt that Mr. Wale Edun is one of the best in his generation. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Distinguished Senator Salisu Shuaibu Afolabi.
Mr. President of the Senate, sitting as chair, distinguished colleagues, I stand proudly today to identify with this nominee. He is my constituent from Ogun Central Senatorial District, the Senatorial District renowned for its excellence and patriotic favor. My name is Shuaibu Afolabi Salisu, representing Ogun Central. Mr. President of the Senate, distinguished colleagues, at a point in our history like now, we require a man like Wale Edun. If some of you were aware of the transformation of Lagos from a state that was making a paltry sum of 600 million naira internally generated revenue in 1999 to billions of naira in the first time of Bola Tinubu as governor, and today is in tens of billions of naira. If you are looking for the man who made that happen, you have the privilege of seeing him here today. Is Wale Edun. This man deployed technology to connect all the 38 tax stations in Lagos State, ensuring that the revenues of Lagos were being monitored as they happened. He blocked all the leakages. He streamlined the procurement process, ensuring that the resources of Lagos were utilized. It was when he was Commissioner for Finance that the funds of Lagos State were seized by the then federal government. It was through his ingenuity that Lagos survived that onslaught and it remained afloat among the Committee of State. If you are looking for the man that managed Lagos State economy and it became the 5th largest economy in Africa and certainly the biggest in Nigeria, this is a man with an uncommon combination of public service finance, public service experience. He worked in Warren's Merchant Bank, and to plead that you should take a bow. But for 2 reasons, we will ask him questions. It will be a disservice for a man of his experience and expertise, a man that will require the support of the Senate now and then to come here and not build the confidence in you, because the reforms of this administration, particularly in the economic space, will require the support of the Senate. And the Senate must have the confidence that the man they're entrusting that responsibility to is capable of doing so. Therefore, he is from Ogun State. When you have a good product, you are not afraid of that product being subjected to interrogation. So we will ask him questions. The second reason we will ask him question is this. This man is most likely, there's no price for guessing, is most likely going to be in charge of our finance and economy. Just yesterday, the president himself addressed the nation. This man that's going to be the anchor man will also have this platform to address the nation. So, Mr. Wale Edun, I'm proud of you from Ogun Central, from Ogun State. You have a pedigree that we are proud of, both your family and you as a person. What my colleagues would like to know, in summary, how would the renewed hope agenda of Mr. President translate to prosperity for our country and enhancement of welfare, well-being, and wellness of the ordinary citizen? Not just in terms of the growth in the GDP or some statistics of reduction in inflationary rate or reduction in MPC rate. You have done it before. In few words, just get that assurance, build that confidence. You are capable of doing it. Distinguished colleagues, after he has answered this question, I played with you. Give him the honor, give him the privilege, treat him decently, and let him take a bow. Thank you.
SARS, don't take over the work of the presiding officer. So let me call on distinguished Senator Neda.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. My colleagues, my name is Senator Neda Imasoe, Edo South Senatorial District. Mr. Wale Edun, welcome, and your CV speaks for itself, and for what you said so far, many of us are convinced. But I'm so concerned with two questions, one of which must have been asked differently by our colleagues here. You spoke so eloquently about how you helped as one of the teams that took Lagos State from where it was to a great height. That time is upon us now as a nation. And so we ask you, what are you going to do differently? What will you do now, given our economic depression today, to help Mr. President to revive our economy again, given the fall free of our naira, given the fact that the ordinary Nigerians can't even afford 3 square meals? 2, corruption is so endemic in our society. And one of the bastions, one of the agencies that fights corruption, that ought to fight corruption, is the Office of the Auditor General for the Federation. As you may know, the audit bill has not been signed. Be that as it may, you're also aware maybe that there's this tussle between that office and the Office of the Accountant General, and indeed the Office of the Minister of Finance. I believe, that that office needs independence for it to work properly. And so I ask, will you be in the forefront to fight to make sure that that office of the Auditor General will have the independence that it deserves so that it can ably fight corruption and reduce corruption in our country? Thank you.
Please, let's try and ask just questions so that we can stop. Distinguished Senator Abiru.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, sitting as the chair, and my colleagues. In fact, I'm highly elated for this opportunity because I must confess, the nominee before us is somebody that I know very well. So it will be very, very unfair if I don't make my own remarks here. And at the same time, I probably will also be sharing, I'll be asking him to share some thought with us. Number one, let me acknowledge that, number one, it was my senior in banking. So people like us grew up in banking to know him. And from his CV, you can attest that he's an accomplished banker. Equally, he was my predecessor as the former Commissioner of Finance in Lagos. As you are all aware, I was also a Commissioner of Finance, but years after he had passed through that particular corridor. And part of the major legacies that he left behind is part of what we rode on and continue to improve the lot of Lagos, and which is still continuing till today. So in Mr. Edun, I see a well-accomplished professional, but there is a part that people, my colleagues, so I join and I support everything my colleagues have said as well. But there's a part that I think has been conspicuously missing, which is the fact that he's equally a grassroots politician. I can attest to that. And I also must also attest to the fact that even in this current dispensation, this current administration, I've worked closely with him. So I support his nomination, just like everybody had done, but I also would like to ask him a question, or not necessarily a question, but so I would like him to share some of the reforms that this current administration has embarked upon, because I happen to know that he's also a part and parcel of all the reforms that we are beginning to see. And specifically, I would like him to speak to the issues around the macroeconomic distortions that this current administration is trying to confront and improve upon. So, Mr. President, distinguished ladies, my distinguished colleagues, I support Mr. Edun's nomination, and I plead that we all support his nomination. Thank you, Mr. President, and my distinguished colleague.
Just take a minute, since we are sitting together. You must have conferred on what you were going to ask. If you had missed something, I'll just add it so that I can come to the leadership.
Thank you, Mr. President, sitting as chair, my respectful, distinguished colleagues, and the nominee. I join all the colleagues to congratulate you for the nomination, and we believe that is one of the best choices that this country will make. I have just a question, and it's related to the fiscal policy. Government responsibility is to cater for growth and stability. It also should concern itself with allocation and also the distribution of such resources, generating the resources in terms of revenue, and then coming to the budgetary system. Looking at what has been going on, and with the perspective of what we were able to, with the cycle of budget I have seen, which always make us to amend the Appropriation Act, either the supplementary or the main act, by many months into the preceding year. Into the coming year. In my view, or in your view, but let me take my view first. I feel it's like correcting an anomaly and then bringing it back from another corner. As a country, if you look at our budgetary system, compare vis-a-vis the revenue, the distribution, and the allocation of these resources, do you still think the budgetary system we are adopting at this moment is good for this country? Thank you, Menamini.
The Deputy Senate President.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Senator Barrow Jibrin, I represent Kano North. Mr. President, Speaker after Speaker, a lot of our distinguished senators that have spoken have spoken about the exploits of this nominee in Lagos. His exploit relating to how the team that was headed by our current president rejuvenated the economy of Lagos to success. Now, as a principal person in that team, one of the most important, critical actors of that thing. Now, I want to know if you are eventually confirmed and you become the Minister of Finance, how are you going to apply techniques that you use in that period that you serve as Lagos State Commissioner of Finance in bringing about economic prosperity to our country. That is, replicating what you did in Lagos at the national stage. I know you do that, but we just in summary, because I know it's going to be a full-scale kind of explanation, but summarize. Number two, I know we operate a federal system of government in this country, but how are you going to a kind of draw the attention of our various subnationals to toe the line exactly, just like what you did in Lagos, in the area of revenue generation? Because a lot of our states are suffering from that, to lack of being able to exploit their full potentials in terms of generation. How? Though we operate a federal system, it's not something that is mandatory. But as a Minister of Finance, how are you going to help in bringing them to follow the line that you use in Lagos? Thank you and congratulations.
Leader of the Senate, turn round. Leader of the Senate. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I come under Order 8, Sub 3 to move for an extension of time to enable this Senate conclude on all the items on our order paper for today. Thank you.
Leader.
Thank you, President. I rise to second the motion moved by the Leader of the Senate that the Senate should extend the time beyond 2 p.m. to continue with all other items on the order paper for today. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded that the Senate do extend the time of sitting beyond 2 p.m. to enable us to conclude the business of the day. Those who are in support of this extension say aye, and those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nominee, most of the people speaking, I can say 90% are saying the same thing, that they are very qualified and they are pouring accolades. I wanted to hear those who have negative things. I have not heard. Okay, so in the absence of any negative thing, I would like you to posit answers, which if you listen very well, you'll notice that all the questions dovetail into one. How are you going to do what you did in Lagos here so that Nigeria can benefit from you? But mine, I want you to also add, what is your opinion about separating the office of the Accountant General of the Federation and that of Accountant General of federal government? Because you have the consolidated revenue post. Money goes in there for the entirety of the federation, right? Then you also have the federal government account. So when we go to FAC, federal government gets its own share. So the federal government should have Accountant General of federal government of Nigeria, who will take care of the percentage that goes to the federal government of Nigeria. Then the entirety of the money that will go into the federation, the consolidated revenue account of the federation, to be shared to the federal government, the states, and local governments. We thought that should also be managed by the Accountant General of the Federation. But right now, only one Accountant General for both the federal government of Nigeria and the Accountant General of the Federation. So there are times that we are now, sometimes the federal government tends to spend money that really should have been spent by the three tier of governments. And so the result is that there is a It's almost like a unitary expenditure framework. So what will be your view if you are given the portfolio of Minister of Finance? Will you want to have that kind of separation? Because these allo chambers will be very glad to help you in minutes.
Your Excellency, the President of the Senate, distinguished senators, first of all, let me thank so many of the senators that have spoken today for their kind words regarding my own acceptability and suitability. It places a heavy burden of responsibility, but it is a responsibility I will not shirk. It's a challenge I will not back down from. And it's, if given the opportunity, I will do my best to ensure that it is not wasted. Your Excellency, I would like to start where you ended. And I think consistency is very important. In the days when I was in public service at the sub-national level, I did, under our president, then governor of Lagos, advocate that there should be a separation between the Accountant General of the Federation and the Accountant General of the federal government. I would like to reserve the right to review and reaffirm that the situation still remains what it was then, which led to that position being taken. However, I will say this. When we see the kind of difficulty that leads to reconciliation upon reconciliation and disagreement between the fiscal division of resources between the federals and the state, definitely there is need for more resources to ensure that the financial relationship between the federal and states and local governments is kept up to date and constitutional. Having said that, may I now go back to what was a plethora of questions regarding the economy. I do not want to take your time, your distinguished senators. Senator Abiru, my very good friend, had indicated that it would be useful to say where we are in terms of economic reform, given that Mr. President has been in office for 2 months, and in that period, I think you will agree with me, he has done a lot. But let me first of all summarize. Much has been said about what happened in Lagos regarding its economic and financial turnaround. In sum, there were 4 things. First of all, there was a commitment to technology. Technology was unsparingly and ruthlessly and robustly used to help increase revenue generation by blocking loopholes and increasing efficiency. Secondly, and in the same way, there was total computerizations of the operations of government. In effect, that was civil service reform by another name. Thirdly, there was reliance on the private sector and private investment to drive the economy. And fourth, there was efficient use of the financial markets. Lagos was put in a position financially in terms of its records where he could access the domestic financial markets for long-term financing. That, in a nutshell, what was done in Lagos, and clearly much of it is repeatable at the federal level. As regards the state of the economy, let us remember where we have come from. In 1990, the wealth, the income per capita, the GDP per capita of Nigeria was higher than that of China. As recently as 1990, today, Chinese per capita income is $13,000 nearly. Nigeria's is just over $2,000. So you can see the gap that has opened up. And the reason why was that production growth was stalled by insecurity, by inflation, and by wasteful government expenditure to a large extent. However, in the last 2 months, there really has been a turnaround in the Nigerian economy, which is room for tremendous optimism. The senator from Ogun, Otumba Benga Daniel, talked about debt. When you look at what has happened with revenue, it is like having a bucket with a hole in it and pouring water in it. The minute you block the hole, the revenue piles up. I'm sure your state governors will tell you that their fiscal situation has turned around, and same with the federal government. It's not quite a question of having so much money that is a question of how do we spend it. But I assure you, there will be a continuous improvement in the fiscal situation at the federal and the state level, and that takes care of the debt situation. Owing is not a bad thing, as long as you have the revenue to service. And it was and is the commitment of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to curtail spending, to curtail inefficiencies, and also to stay within the law in terms of borrowing to finance government operations. The subsidy removal and the exchange rate elimination of multiple windows has left us in a very strong position to go forward. However, and it is the concern that Mr. President has been raising, in the time between the several months that it takes for the benefits of economic reform to come through, there is pain. There's substantial economic pain. And that's why the task of government and the commitment of President Tinubu is to ensure that the poorest, the weakest, and the most vulnerable in society are protected through that period. And distinguished senators, it is not just a job for the federal government. The states have their role to play. The corporate sector has its role to play. Individuals have their role to play. The economy has been turned around and put on a positive path by the bold and courageous monetary and fiscal measures of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And what remains is for us to do all we can to support this process so that we stay the course and move this country to the level of a prosperous nation, which is where it rightfully belongs and the people of Nigeria deserve to be. Thank you.
That we unanimously, our nominee, you see that everybody is waiting to ask questions, and so many hands are up, but we can't allow you to answer all the questions in one day, because after your confirmation, if by the Senate, we may need to invite you back. so that we can have maybe closed session. So the minority leader, do you have anything you want to say? Please, quickly.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, my name is Simon Watkon. I'm from Plateau State, and I represent Plateau North. Mr. President, we are all aware that the Nigerian currency is a very weak currency, very, very weak. And by our monetary policy, I strongly believe that if we allow the Naira to continue to float, it will become more weaker, day in, day out. I want to ask, sir, do you agree that as a monetary policy, Nigeria should have a benchmark for the exchange rate of the Naira with the dollar? And I think you will give us a very good answer. Thank you.
Distinguished Senator, distinguished Chief Whip, just 1 minute question, please.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Our nominee, mine is not a question but a reminder. Reminder because you are in charge of the monetary policies and we know the role you can play, plus the fact that you are a politician. The recurrent expenditure in this country, if you look at their statistics, in 2018 was 3.5 trillion. It's now 8.2 trillion. No employment, no promotion, but yet the cost is escalating. Secondly, our rate of debt servicing, which I believe you know. For the first time around, almost 90 or 95% of our income is going into debt servicing. And that is because of the borrowing. Number three, our savings from the removal of the oil subsidy, as mentioned by Mr. President yesterday, was up to 1 trillion. And my confusion is, we are saving 1 trillion, and we here approved borrowing of $800 million, and also approved a supplementary budget of 500 billion for the palliatives. I'm glad Mr. President reversed and took another look at the modalities given by the World Bank. That is to share 8,000 per month and all that. Mr. President has done the right thing by looking at that again. And also, you know that our foreign reserve, for the first time again, is going into negative. I don't know the specific amount, but we are in negative. And also, the exchange rate, as it is now, is 867 or so, and it's moving on. Immediate one on this exchange rate, and then the palliatives that the government is planning. We should see it. Lastly, sir, please don't share this money. Let it be shared among the people. I mean, the savings. We have 1 trillion. If we are to share it, let's calculate Nigerians or divide it by 774 local government and let it get down. Not to share it among some people that will also go and mismanage it again. That's my advice.
Distinguished Senate Leader.
Well, Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, so much has been said, and I believe there is a reason for such. One, it is generally suspected that Mr. Wale Edun might be heading a very sensitive ministry. So I can understand. His background also attests to the fact that the seriousness of an assignment that might be given to him is such that, as elected representatives of the people, we should be concerned. Mine, Mr. President, is to make a very short comment and to ask only one question. My comment will have to do also with the fact that Mr. Wale Edun is well and favorably known to me. I was also privileged to have served in the same cabinet with him under His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu as governor of Lagos State, where I was privileged to have served the government and people of Lagos State for 11.5 years under 2 governors. What I want to attest to on my own part is his strength of character and the fact that he's a motivator. I recall with a very high sense of nostalgia how Mr. Wale Edun will motivate and energize other members of cabinet in very difficult situations, and how he believed sincerely that there was a solution to every challenge, to every problem. And I think having someone like him in the cabinet of the Federal Republic of Nigeria at a time like this will be a major plus for our country. Number 2, I also want to attest to the fact that he's one person who can stand his ground. He was not a yes man in that cabinet. And he was somebody who saw his service in public service only as a temporary thing. At every point, he carried himself like a professional. And he always believed he had an alternative address. So he wasn't somebody who would just take anything. Why am I saying this? It's because where we are right now, we need a minister in charge of our finance who will be able to stand his ground. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, part of the problem of our economy in the last decade was that we had ministers of finance who were not able to stand their ground to draw a line of demarcation between monetary policies and fiscal policies. Regardless of how a governor of central bank is, the minister of finance is the #1 person in charge of the economy. And he must be able to stand his ground. He must be able to insist on a line of demarcation being drawn between monetary policy and fiscal policy. Not a situation where the central bank will intervene in everything and you will not even know where the mandate of the central bank starts and where it ends. So, if I will ask him any question today, my question will be, Mr. Wale Edun, in the event, by the grace of God, that you are screened and confirmed by this Senate, and in the event that you are posted by Mr. President to the Ministry of Finance, how would you ensure that our fiscal policies are clearly demarcated from our monetary policies so that we don't continue to have this challenge in our economy? Thank you, Mr. President.
Finally, let us listen to our Senate President Emeritus, distinguished Senator Ahmed Lawan.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Sitting as chair, distinguished colleagues, I'm Ahmed Ibrahim Lawan. I represent Yobe North. Mr. Nominee, Mr. Wale Edun, congratulations for the nomination. And your name and reputation precedes you. I've never met you physically, but I've heard your name so many times over the years as someone who makes positive difference anytime you are given an assignment. Distinguished colleagues, you will recall that we have passed the amendment to the supplementary budget of 500 billion, approved $800 million, and of course recently a saving of about 1 trillion naira was made by the federal government. And the idea is to give money, maybe share money, 8,000 to some of our citizens who are so disadvantaged. My problem is, and that is where my question is coming from, those who are so disadvantaged, those that are so vulnerable in our country, are those that are in rural areas mostly, and of course we have few in urban centers, and those are not people with bank accounts. The financial inclusion apparently is not sufficient. And if we have to give monies to these vulnerable people who are really deserving of the share, how would you achieve that? You cannot go to villages or market squares and start giving cash. If you have to make transfer, they have no accounts. You will end up giving the money to those that do not deserve the money. So how do we intend to achieve this first assignment of giving Nigerians, those that are so vulnerable, those that are so poor, that need the attention and support of governments, not only the federal government, but especially the federal government, when they have no accounts, and yet we are saying we should share the money? I believe that we have an answer to this, because it's going to be our first test. We have to get this distribution properly done, because Nigerians need this, almost everyone. But there are those that need it most, and those that need it most have no bank accounts. So I want you specifically to respond to this, because it's something that we should address, and address very soon before we start distributing the money. Whether it is national register or state registers, the people remain without bank accounts. How do you give them this money? Thank you very much.
Because I want just jot down these two sections. I want you to jot down what I'm going to tell you. Section 80 of the Nigerian Constitution. Section 83 says, no monies shall be withdrawn from any public fund of the Federation other than the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation, unless the issue of those monies has been authorized by an act of the National Assembly. You got it? Section 80 sub 4 says, no money shall be withdrawn from the Consolidated Revenue Fund or any other public fund of the Federation, except in the manner prescribed by the National Assembly. You got it? In the past, these things were observed in bridges, and that is why a lot of reconciliations are taking place now to see how monies can be refunded and shared back to states and local governments. So God giving you the opportunity, we just want you to comply with the constitutional provisions. And you can commit to this chamber that if so granted the privilege, that you will do so. Then Senator Goje also said that his question that touched on power was not well answered. It will look as if you are answering all the questions that pertain to government. It's because of the confidence that this chamber seems to repose in you, and that also reflects the feelings of Nigerians that you are coming to make a difference. So you can answer all now, and thereafter you take a bow.
Your Excellency, distinguished senators, thank you very much. Senator Goje beat me to it. I was noting that that question on power was one that I had not addressed. And my response is this: there has been liberalization of the electricity sector, and it's done in order to allow investment in all aspects of the value chain. And I think it is that liberalization that will unleash investment in the sector, expertise in the sector, and decentralization of the once very, very monolithic, I would say, the once very monolithic power sector. So His Excellency beat me to it, but I was going to come back and reply you that we should look to the new dispensation in the electricity sector to bring the solutions that we seek. May I try and distinguished Senator, India would achieve what we are trying to achieve and what is giving us so much difficulty in a jiffy. A digital identity for virtually every man, woman, and child in India is what they have achieved, is what is recommended for us. It is what the